in some way. And we're going to have a lot of shared experiences in here. There are a lot of things that you might not have come across yet, but chances are you will. When I started learning about dementia, and I found out that 1 in 3 seniors will die with some form of dementia right now, I realized that my experience wasn't unique. So I hope today to leave you with a better understanding of some of the changes that you can expect to see in your loved ones and how to navigate those changes. We can talk about how we can mitigate dementia in ourselves while there's still time. And then we'll talk about an idea of leaving a legacy for our kids. Now, I want to preface this by saying I am not an expert in dementia. I am an expert in how dementia affected our family. My mom passed away at the age of 93, and the real Eileen left us a few years before that in the form of a lost train of thought here, a forgotten word there. And of course, we just thought it was the natural byproduct of aging. But looking back, we realized that it was dementia taking hold. And in a seminal conversation I had with my mom, at one point I looked at her and it hit me. Mom was gone. This wasn't my mom anymore. It was a familiar stranger and someone that I had loved for so many years, but Mom had left us, and with her went her memories and her stories. And I had missed the opportunity to glean those memories and story. They're gone forever. It broke my heart to think that my daughters might be engaging with me in the same way if I go down the road of dementia. And so I sat down to write them this pre-dementia love letter to give them my thoughts and feelings and wishes while I'm still able to express myself, and so that they know that it would be true when they read it years down the road. I wanted to give them some guidance, some of the guidance that I had to learn by trial and error and trial and error. And often those trials and errors were at the expense of my mom. So I'm going to, just a second here, stop my video, and I'm going to give you some of the experiences that I've known. It took a long time for me to realize that I kept expecting my mom to be herself, and that was no longer our reality. And once I wrapped my head around the fact that I was dealing with someone else, it made life much easier for both of us. The reason for this book was to make sure that my girls understood that it's not me. I will have become someone else at that point. And if they can remember that, it'll go a long way in preserving their feelings, well, and sanity. If you're dealing with a familiar stranger of your own, try to remember that it's not them. Now, to better understand the difference dementia makes, we can think about a massive warehouse where our memories are stored. And if we want to remember a vacation, we just walk over to the vacation area, see all those memories in full view at our fingertips. Each day, though, one memory is packed up in a box, taped shut, put on a shelf without a label. For the first while, we can still find that memory, but it might take us a little bit longer. Eventually, though, there are just shelves and shelves of boxes, and we can't recall where to go to find the memory we want. And along with straining to recall things, the ability to process information is stunted. So this means that they can't keep up with normal conversations anymore. Chances are they have hearing issues, so making sure their hearing aids are working well is really important. But sometimes they can hear us, they can't make out what we're saying. So when we're at the end of a 15-word sentence, they're still back on the 4th word. Now, the key to this is speaking slowly. You will feel ridiculous speaking like this, but it will vastly improve their ability to understand you. That little tip was a game changer for me. It also helps to reduce background noise, turn off the radio, shut the window, close the door, anything to limit distractions because their minds can't multitask anymore. Man, it pains me to think of the times that my mom would be sitting at a table full of people. Our families would get together for a meal and my mom would be sitting there with her head down, just playing with her food. We'd try to get her into the conversation, but she just wouldn't engage. It was very frustrating. Later on, though, I learned that it would have been like she was sitting in a plastic bubble. She could see us talking to her, but she couldn't hear or understand what was being said. She didn't get the jokes anymore, and we were talking way too fast. It was easier for her to concentrate on her plate. And I realized it must have been a very lonely and frustrating time for her, but we didn't know. The way we communicate with our loved ones at this stage is so different than it has been, but the awareness around it will make a huge difference in your time together. Joe Huey with the Alzheimer's Caregiver Institute penned the 10 Absolutes of Communicating Through Alzheimer's. These are great tips for communicating with your loved one. First, never argue, instead agree. Whatever you're talking about, you can't change their mind and you don't need to. You do not need to be right. Correcting them will only embarrass them and it'll raise the frustration level for both of you. Never reason, instead divert. There's a common and weirdly similar experience in dementia patients of wanting to go home. And my mom would keep asking to go home. We had no idea what she was talking about, which home. We couldn't understand it. So we found if we diverted her attention and said things like, okay, well, we'll go after your nap, or let's have lunch first and then we'll talk about it. We were able to get her off the subject. It came back, of course, but for the moment, it gave us a reprieve. And even if you could reason them out of it, they won't remember it a few minutes later. Never shame, instead distract. Our children learn by cause and effect. Seniors don't. It's really important to keep their self-esteem intact when we're with them and helping them. Never lecture, instead reassure. There are going to be a lot of opportunities to lecture. Bad language, incontinence, forgetfulness. Their motor skills are waning and they're dropping and breaking things. Our children master motor skills. We grow up to be adults and then we go backward again to being the child. Again, constantly correcting them will only get you both frustrated. Never say remember, instead reminisce. There's a subtle difference here. But when we say, hey, Dad, do you remember when we went to Hawaii and swam with the dolphins? It puts pressure on him to recall a memory that isn't at his fingertips anymore. So it's easier to just start talking about the Hawaii trip. And if he remembers it, he'll join in with you. And if he doesn't, it takes the pressure off of him. Never say, I told you. Instead, repeat. Repeat, repeat, repeat. We're going to get the same question over and over. And it's very frustrating. But if we can stop and remember that they sincerely don't remember asking you that question, and they sincerely don't remember your answer, it makes it a little bit easier to answer it with the same patience the third time as you did the first time. Never say you can't. Instead, do what they can. Their abilities are so diminished at this point, so many things that they're not able to do. It's in their best interest and our sanity to steer them toward things that they can do. Never command, instead ask. It's really easy to be overbearing at this point. They are large children now. We have to remember that they still have feelings and that they need the respect that they're due. Never condescend, instead encourage. It's really easy to speak around them and about them instead of with them. This came home to me in meeting that we had with my mom's caregivers, with her doctors, social workers, OTs, and the care unit. And we were making these decisions and having this whole conversation. And then her doctor finally stopped and said, why don't we ask what Eileen wants? And it hit me between the eyes because we had been talking around her. And I don't know that what she contributed made any difference in the decision, but it made her feel like it, like she's still in the room. Never force, instead reinforce. No one likes being told what to do. So let's guide them to do what they can do instead of trying to force them to do what we want. I hope these tips will help you in your communication with them. Just keeping them in mind made a big difference for us. Now, not only will they forget where they are, they might be confused as to when they are. So if they say Merry Christmas to you and it's June, go on in and bring some eggnog. Join in wherever or whenever they are that day and just enjoy your time together. There's no need to correct them because it just doesn't matter. That's where their mind has taken them, so just join them there. It's very common for those with dementia to experience hallucinations or delusions. Hallucinations are when they see something that isn't there. Delusions are when they believe something that isn't true. Now, when these things happen, try to remember that this is very real for them, and arguing or correcting them will demean what they're experiencing. My first experience with this was having coffee with my mom at home, and she casually mentioned the man standing in the kitchen. Well, it freaked me out, but it didn't seem to bother her at all. So thankfully, he must have seen his way out and we didn't have to deal with him further, but it was far from the last hallucination she had. Now, here's a proviso, very important. There's a big difference between a harmless hallucination and a psychotic episode. If your loved one is afraid of what they're experiencing, stay with them and call for help. Chances are very good that their meds need to be adjusted. That's what we have found. Part of the delusion may be of them accusing you of trying to steal something from them or poison them. We're in the line of fire when these kind of things come out and when they're lashing out in frustration or anger or fear. And we have to do our best to remember that it's not them speaking, it's the disease. Remembering this will help you leave those hurtful words at the door when you go. And speaking of words, our filters wane with age, and you may find your loved one using language that's out of character for them. And that's a shocker when you hear it the first time. When this happens, hopefully, you'll be able to find the humor in it, knowing how embarrassed they would be if they had any idea what was happening. Things that used to be automatic, like brushing their teeth or putting on clothes, are no longer automatic. Those things now become processes that have to be thought through, literally step by step. This can be frustrating for us because it's like pushing a toddler to finish something again. And it's so easy to celebrate the changes in our kids as they learn new skills, but very hard to recognize when those same skills have diminished in our seniors. Now, when this happens, it can be helpful to leave them notes as reminders. The time will come, though, when the ability to do those things is just gone. And that's when you have to look past yourself as caregivers and bring in the big guns. Incredible changes are taking place in their minds and bodies, and most of us are unable to keep up. There's so many similarities between being a child and being a senior, right down to both being spoon-fed and wearing diapers. Modesty and personal hygiene go out the window, and that kind of care is a lot for us to take on. My mom seemed like a locked safe with a combination that kept changing. Our family dynamics changed, and at times it was hard not to feel resentful. Now, Mom was fortunate because there were 4 of us to take care of her and Dad, and she was able to pass away at home. But my dad is now in the same position, and it was just too much for us. Too many falls forced him into long-term care, and it's been a godsend for all of us. I tell my girls to let the professionals help me. These are people who have trained for this and love doing it. I want them to have the luxury of being my daughters and friends, not caregivers. Now, this of course comes with a level of guilt because I undoubtedly feel that they're passing me off. But I assure them that that's not the case. It's the best system for all, but I may not recognize it at that time. This gives them the release to make that decision in good conscience. Now, all of this is a lot to manage, so many changes, and it can become a burden. So when your loved one is stomping on your last nerve, take a deep breath and try to see past their condition and into their humanity. It's not the mother, daughter, sister, friend who's acting out. It's the disease that's taken a hold of them. Now, just because my mom had dementia doesn't mean I'm going to get it. But if I do, I'm trying to do my best now to mitigate those chances as much as possible. The Alzheimer's Association, which is a great place to find support and information, have 10 ways to love your brain, which gives us really common sense tips for ourselves now before it's too late. I know when I'm working out and I'm doing those crunches and lunges, I just wish I'd cut back on the donuts when I had the chance, instead of having to try to gain back that ground. But let's go through these and hopefully you can keep them in mind for yourself and self-care right now. Get enough exercise. Those with cognitive decline find it harder to perform activities of daily living. So keeping your independence longer is a possibility when you stay in shape. Challenge your mind through education. Learning something new builds your brain's reserve and can help balance the damage of Alzheimer's. And there's always something to learn. With the internet, we have no excuse. Don't smoke. Your chances of developing dementia go up 45% if you smoke. And the more you smoke, the higher that percentage. So if there was ever a reason to give it up, this is a good one. Take care of your heart. If it's good for your heart, it's good for your brain. Cardio health is an important factor in managing dementia. Protect your head. Wear a helmet. You could think of dementia as a brain injury, as many of the results are the same. Eat a healthy, balanced diet. Your body's a machine, and don't be surprised if your body and mind aren't firing on all cylinders if you're not taking in premium fuel. Get enough sleep. Your body does its repair work during sleep, and poor sleep is known to be a risk factor for cognitive decline. So many things that we just don't even think about anymore, and they have such an effect on us. Take care of your mental health. This will mean something different to each of us. Talk to your friends, but don't wear them out. There are professionals and support groups who can help you. Don't carry this burden alone because you don't have to. There's so much available to us. And you know, it could be something as simple as buying yourself a special coffee while you're shopping or taking an afternoon off from work. Just something to treat yourself and get that mental break. Stay social. Studies show a connection between memory loss and loneliness. Daily contact with friends and family can reduce your risk of dementia. Now, it's taken this far into the presentation, but finally COVID comes up. This last year of COVID, we have been isolated, sometimes quarantined. We've been forced to do things we don't want to and restricted from doing things we do want to. Sounds a lot like dementia. That is what these people are living with day after day. And if anything this last year has taught us, it should give us a better understanding of what they're dealing with daily. Challenge your mind. There's so many activities available to make this last step enjoyable. Puzzles, games, learning something new, learn a second language if you can. As I mentioned, my book started out as a love letter to my daughters, so that should the time come when I'm not me anymore, they'll have some guidance and know my heart. To support this, they have my permission and encouragement to ask me any questions that come to mind for them. So for those of you who have parents who are still around, and are able to recall their memories, you have the opportunity to glean those memories and write them down, keep them for a legacy. By the time I understood that importance, it was too late. My mom was gone, and with her, she took all of her stories, and we'll just never get those back. So you have the opportunity to sit down, have conversations, capture their thoughts and feelings, ask how they felt on their wedding day, who was their best friend growing up, ask them to tell you about the day you were born. All of those things. Now, if you want to leave a legacy for your children on who you are, then things like using, or the 10 words that you use to describe them to other people, the day that they were born, the proudest moments of your life. The back of my book has a list of just some prompts, some things that you might want to consider when asking questions and leaving that legacy. Chapter 1 in my book is my love letter to my daughters, and I would like to read it for you now. I'm going to try not to cry. Dear Rebecca and Rachel, I'm writing this while still in full command of my faculties. I hope that as I age, my mental capacities will remain undiminished. In the later years of Grandma's life, we all came to a new understanding of how dementia affects not only those afflicted, but everyone around them as well. I'm doing what I can now to stave off the onset of dementia, but I know that very little in life works out the way we plan. So I'm giving this book to you as a gift in case the time comes when my mind fails me. If or when this happens, I need you to know that I'm not me anymore. I will have forgotten what it means to be me, and I'll have a diminished understanding of the world and my place in it. When I tell you that everything is changing, I mean everything is changing for all of us. This is not a solitary condition. It affects everything from how we communicate to how we spend our time. We'll experience loss on a whole new level. I will become a familiar stranger who looks like your mom, but behaves and speaks like someone else. I know it's probably hard to believe looking at me now, but I was full of dreams. I knew love and passion and enjoyed being a woman. I was no different from you. So when time has run its course and I'm no longer vital, be patient with me. I never dreamed that I would sit with you and have nothing to say, but that will become a common occurrence. My mental processes are no longer sharp. And when you feel frustrated because I've just asked you the same question 3 times, please remember that I'm trying to connect. I may not be successful, but I am trying. Down the road, if I share words of anger or frustration with you, they're coming from someone I don't even recognize. If I lash out, it'll be because I'm afraid or feeling vulnerable. It isn't easy going from independence and strength to dependency and frailty. But always remember that the last thing I ever want is to hurt you. In times when I may not remember your face, know that I still hold you in my heart. I gave you life, and you gave it back to me with every hug, every movie afternoon, and every moment of laughter. I pray if I lose my memories that the bad ones go first, like the heartbreaks of realizing that life didn't turn out the way it was supposed to, and dreams that never took flight, like the trespasses of those who hurt us, intentionally or not, and betrayals of those we entrusted our hearts to, who weren't worthy of that trust. Those heartbreaks just aren't worth holding on to, because they rob us of a time that could go toward enjoying life and building good memories. Remember this for yourself, even if I don't. I believe you know that I did my very best for you with the knowledge and resources I had at the time. I walked my talk, and I tried to be a good example for you. I taught you God's ways, and once you were an adult, I did my best to let you make your own choices and live with the rewards and consequences that came with them. So many times I wanted to keep you from choosing poorly, but I bit my tongue most of the time. It made me feel good when you would ask for my help with something. We never outgrow the need to be needed. Remember that now, even with those around you. One thing I hope I never ever forget is how much we laughed together. We enjoyed each other's company, which is more than a lot of mothers and daughters can say. I'm so blessed to have shared years of love and laughter with you both. What great times we had snuggled up in my bed when you were young, making up stories and laughing until we cried. So many of those jokes lasted all through your adult years and make us smile even now. Part of the deterioration of my communication skills is that I won't understand humor the way I used to, and this will be a great loss for all of us. If this occurs, think back on the years and years of fun we had and remember them for me. You are my world, but don't make me yours. Let me be part of your life, but don't let my needs consume you. Being a caregiver is the hardest job, and I never want you to resent being in that position. No, there's no guilt in letting someone else help me with daily living. There are many people out there who can take care of me, but only you can be my daughters and friends. This is the way I want it to be. Speaking of these matters in a future tense makes it too easy to fall back on the idea that these challenges only happen to other people, and we therefore won't have to worry about them. With this in mind, this book is written in the present tense, from an imagined time when I've already begun the descent into the land of forgetfulness. The chapters are short, but I trust they will help you gain insight into the strange world of dementia that we may find ourselves navigating. Lastly, when we hear stories of people regretting that the last words they said to a loved one were of anger or disinterest, not knowing they would never see that person again. If that's ever the case with us, please let go of that regret. I know you love me, and a few harsh words would never cancel out the lifetime of love you've given me. Even if I'm not me anymore, the part that sometimes remembers will feel your love and laughter and warmth and kindness still. Few people have known love the way you have loved me, and I will carry that with me always. Love, Mom. I hope this has offered some information and inspiration to you on your journey. Dementia changes the people we love, and all we can do is do our best and love them through it. Thanks for having me.
If there are any questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask them or type them into the chat. Yeah.
Maybe I just said it all so well.
Yeah.
Answered all the questions on dementia ever. I know there are a lot of stats in my book as well, which were true at the time when I wrote it a couple of years ago, but so much is changing in that world already. You know, I'm sure some of them are already outdated.
Yeah. It is a very quickly changing outlook.
Yes. I'm actually looking at writing a second version of it. Like I prefaced, I'm not a professional in this, but I am looking at teaming up with a professional so we can add a different layer to this. This is heartfelt,
Yeah.
You know, this is from the heart. And I try to give some information, but having even more for people who are just beginning this journey. I mean, we just had no idea what was going on. And like most people, I wasn't interested in dementia until it affected me.
Yes.
Right? Yes. And then, so we had no idea going into this.
Yeah.
So hopefully.
Yeah, I think that would be great. It's so important to have both aspects represented in the information out there. Yeah, because it's one thing to read the facts and it's something else to read experiences, but you can't get a full picture without experiencing it yourself, or at least seeing both aspects.
And also, I believe, Michelle, I gave you 2 book stubs.
Yes.
If anybody wants to get a free e-copy of it.
Yes.
And thank you for having me in your library.
Yes, thank you. This was wonderful. I'm excited that you could join us.
And if anybody's just shy and has some questions for you later, please just pass them along to me and I'm happy to interact
Absolutely.
one-on-one.
Yes, we can do that for sure. I am curious, was there anything that you learned while you were writing your book that like you hadn't prior, like while you were experiencing? Yeah, I don't know if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, well, the 10 steps of taking care of yourself. Yeah. It was good to know that we can mitigate this. We don't just have to give into it.
Yeah.
And again, it's not hereditary. So just because my mom had it doesn't mean I will get it.
Yeah.
But if we can stave off these things now,
yeah,
like I said, just staying in shape and taking care of myself will go a long way so that my girls don't have to go through what we went through. It's heart-wrenching to see your loved one like that. And especially when you don't know what's going on, you don't know the answers. And things like the psychotic episode, they're terrifying when you're in the middle of them. But when you have an awareness around it and you think, this isn't unusual. It's strange for me, but it's not unusual. It gives you a better grounding on how to deal with things. I think for the most part, when I was researching this, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh, look at me. A forgotten word. It really established that what we were going through were real things. We weren't thinking what's going on, you know, and they could be anticipated. So we weren't unique.
Yeah. Interesting. Thank you.
I'll be interested to see the other sections of this unit that you're putting together.
Yeah.
I'm sure you get a pretty well-rounded
yes.
look at it.
We've had researchers on family caregiving. We have yourself and then another author, and then we'll have a visit from a nurse from the primary care network and cameras on more like specific resources that are available in our community.
Great.
All right. Yeah, if there are no other questions, you're welcome to hop off for the day.
Okay, get back to my painting.
Yes.
Thank you again for having me, Michelle. Really appreciate being able to share.
Yes, thank you so much.